Good afternoon, and welcome to Pivot to Takeout, Delivery and Catering, Leveraging the Opportunities. I'm Rob Grimes, the CEO of the Ifbta, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. Next slide, please. Let me go ahead and start by giving you a description of the Ifbta itself. The Ifbta is a not-for-profit trade association focused solely on technology within the food and beverage industries. It is open to all, both operators and suppliers, and also friends of the industry who are interested in technology that may not be directly involved. It is a global organization that has local chapters over in Europe and in the United States, but it also has many events at our industry events, certainly when they come back. And it has a certification program to teach people the use of technology across the food and beverage industry. We have a lot of industry partnerships and support, and one of them is the very special partnership that we have with Clarion Events, and very specifically to provide technology education and networking at the Restaurant Show in New York, the Western Restaurant Show in California, and the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Show. And this is part of that series with Tech Bites to bring technology education to everyone who is interested in the industry. The next slide, please. So before we get started, let me go ahead and do a few housekeeping things. First of all, if you have any questions, because we will have a Q&A at the end of this session, please submit those questions via the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. It would be great if you would specify which speaker you would like to answer the question, and if you want everybody to answer the question or address it, or anybody, just go ahead and list that as well. During the session, your questions will be sent to me so that when we hit the Q&A session, we can go ahead and ask those questions of our panel. We would ask that you stay away from questions that regard sales, pricing, any kinds of political discussions, or any kind of disparaging remarks. All attendees are muted during this session, so you can use the chat if you need to share comments or communicate with the panel itself. But Q&A tab is where you submit your questions. There is going to be a recording of the webinar, which will be made available after the call at foodandbeverageshows.com, the ifbta.org, and other partner websites and social media. And also, if we don't get to all your questions, we will be answering them after as well. Next slide, please. So if our panelists will please turn on their microphones and their video, we will get started with introductions. So today we have a great panel that comes from different ends of the industry. And our subject, of course, is talking about the pivot of takeout, catering, and delivery and online. However, a lot of you have already done that pivot. And so the other word that's really operational here is opportunity. And many people have not only taken the pivot to be able to change the way they did business if they weren't doing it before, but they also are now having new opportunities that are available to them to be able to use what they pivoted to in order to do new business as things go forward, not only through the end of the pandemic, but also beyond. And so our discussion today will not only be the stories of how people have pivoted and what experiences they've gotten, but also what they see in the future and how they can turn those into opportunities. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and introduce each one of our speakers. They will go ahead and give a little bit about their company, a little bit about the initiatives that they're doing in this area, any thoughts that they have, and then we'll open it up to a panel discussion with everybody, and then finally we'll go to the Q&A. So again, use the Q&A tab. We're going to go ahead and start with Chris Incarvati, who's the Director of Cafe Operations and Support for Panera Bread. So Chris, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here, Rob and team. I just wanted to say thank you and get started. So Panera Bread, as most of you know, we're a fairly large fast casual chain in the United States, cafe bakery, soups, salads, breads, cookies, a lot of good eats. And so as we were challenged with COVID, we had started out with a large percentage of our business being in the catering sector, about 10% of our business overall. And I'd say that once that hit, it really put a damper on things for us for a while, and we had to redirect. But I wanted to talk about our other channels too, and kind of what I've been doing the last couple of years. So in my role, I've kind of oversaw delivery systems, our aggregator marketplace integration team, and then also worked with our order injection process in our cafe from our numerous e-commerce platforms. So we currently have the ability to take rapid pickup orders, delivery, obviously from our own in-house delivery team and also through our third-party aggregators, whether that be Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates. We do have drive-through in a number of locations. We did, like I said, a number of catering orders, a large sector of our business. And then we've also started just now doing curbside pickup, and I'll talk about that in a second too. And as we went through this pandemic and as things changed, we had to shift our thinking. We never thought we would do anything with curbside because it just seemed too difficult for us to do. Also, it took a lot of effort. We have multiple channels coming into our cafes within the four walls, and as we add more, it becomes more complex, makes things a little bit more difficult for our operators. So how we had to pivot was a big change for us. So as we started to adjust, we thought, okay, well, curbside is sort of like rapid pickup, just we have to somehow get it outside. So we started introducing curbside, and when we did that, people were comfortable coming to the store. We had an associate bring the bag out to the car, assist the customers and make sure that they were comfortable. And then we realized, okay, well, people are sitting in their car, and how do we know when they're there? So then we started introducing an I'm here button. That made the ability for us to get the food out when the people arrived in a more timely fashion. People didn't have to wait as long. That kind of took off. In the meantime, a lot of you probably use kiosks within our locations. So as cafes started to reopen, we had to learn how to social distance within the cafe and make sure that we put the kiosks in the right locations and separated those and be able to use them in a way that was more conducive and safe for our customers and our associates. So we've been doing that, and we've been able to adjust how we do things. We're also looking at value add and changing things a little bit differently than we've done in the past. We introduced the grocery channel. That was something very unique for us. We'd never used grocery before. And we've been selling avocados, fresh tomatoes, multiple products in bulk, yogurt, things of that nature. We introduced a new duets program where you can get, for example, half a sandwich of grilled cheese, and then you're also getting a tomato soup cup for a really good value. And then we're also looking at different programs, like we have our new coffee subscription, unlimited coffee. We're also offering special offerings with that coffee. We're also doing programs in the future that might offer things like kids eat free or things of that nature. We're considering all different sorts of avenues in the future. But for us, the biggest change was that loss of catering revenue, and how do we adjust to that? So what we've had to do is open up our channels to multiple ways that we can make people comfortable to order from us. And so far, we've been fairly successful. I'll tell you that we were down significantly in sales to begin. I think at one point it was close to 70%. We've come back in a big way. We're still negative sales, but we're turning profit. And we've changed the way we do business for good, I think, as part of this. We're still considering how to use catering in a more efficient manner because a lot of municipalities have cut back on the amount of people that can be in a building for work. So we're looking to introduce a new program called Panera at Work, where we can actually have people go into the building and be able to take a group order and then have that order show up and arrive in a timely fashion. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can, make us more accessible to the rest of the groups that want to get Panera in a way that maybe they hadn't thought of before. So thank you for inviting me here, and I hope I can answer some questions and let you know a little bit more about Panera Bread.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. Next, I'd like to introduce Geoff Alexander, who is the president of WowBow. So Geoff.
Thank you, Rob, and everybody who's listening in. I hope everyone is safe, and family, team, I hope everyone is surviving the best that they can at this time. WowBow, for those of you who do not know, we are a 6-unit restaurant chain here in Chicago, based here in Chicago. We also have airport locations. Unfortunately, they are all shut at this time. In the past, we've done college campuses, we've done food trucks. We are in over 300 grocery stores with our frozen retail line. We've worked with MLB, NFL, NHL, and NBA. And we've worked with music festivals. This weekend would traditionally be Lollapalooza here in Chicago, 100,000 people a day, and we would go through about 30,000 bow over these 3 days. So unfortunately, that's not happening right now, but that gives you a brief glimpse into who we are. We were created back in 2003. Our parent company is Let Us Entertain You, privately held restaurant group based in Chicago that started in 1971 by Richard Melman. I've been with Let Us Entertain You since 1993. and I joined the Wildbow team in 2009. We've always been a leader in technology, whereas in 2009 we started using self-ordering kiosks. Seems pretty mainstream right now, but back then I think you had airports, movie theaters, and banks were the only places using kiosks. And we've had it as part of our business for over a decade now. Also, back in 09, we had online ordering from your desktop. Sort of silly to say that because everybody has it now, but back then we didn't. And even back in 09, we had an app. At the time, I think there were 300,000 apps in the App Store. We were one of the 300,000. Now there's over 3 billion or whatever it may be. So technology has always been a big part of who we are. We're a fast casual concept. Check average is probably in the low $10 to $12 range. So we really work on volume of business. Since COVID hit, we've done two things that I'm very proud of. The first is, didn't take a lot of brain power behind us, but we started family meals, where we figured out a way to get the ability for people to order for 4 people at a price point that might be a higher cost for us, but was a much better gross profit line margin, almost steakhouse thinking, right? You're making $10, $12, $14 profit, even though you're running a 40% cost of goods. But we saw tremendous traction on making that happen, and we got that up and running in about 3 days with the team really focused on how to make something viable for people. The big initiative that we've taken over, and that we undertook, was back in November of 2019. We were looking at our concept and how we should grow it. And we had this idea. We have national distribution of our product, which is made frozen for us, and we can ship it across the country. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if other restaurants could sell our product out the back door, third-party delivery? So we started figuring this out. Our idea originally came up from, think of the Cold Stone Creameries of the world, who only have, 7 or 8 months of real business because in the winter months, they don't have a lot of volume. Or the hotels who have a full room service staff, but there isn't any, they're in food deserts. We thought about catering companies who, after they put out their product, they could be picking on a whole revenue stream. Or the coffee shop that's done with business at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, now they can serve dinner. So we started working on this. We created online training, SOPs, reference manuals. We created a marketing playbook. We created a whole social play. And we launched in late January with one of Lettuce's sister restaurants. After just a few short weeks, though, they hit COVID and they had to shut down. However, we had a couple of leads going. And in the last 12 weeks, we have launched 37 locations across the country. We have a pipeline that will get us to over 80 by the end of August. And we have tremendous growth planned in the coming months. And what we've done is we've given a way for restaurant operators who are sitting on empty kitchens a way to grow sales top line and make about a 40% bottom line profit, because we've created a 36% food and packaging cost of goods with an average 25% commission for third parties. Means that on every sale they're keeping 40%. Because there's no additional labor. The food's coming out of a box and it's just steamed. It's fully cooked, thawed, and then you just serve. What we're doing right now is we've found a way to help restaurants succeed during these hard times. We're very proud of that. We're helping with supply chain, getting food out there and getting people back to work in that regards. And we're seeing tremendous success right now. Our goal is for every operator to do $2,000 a week in sales by week 6 of operations, which would be $100,000 a year run rate, making $40,000 in profit. We have restaurants that in week 1 are doing over $5,000 a week in sales. And during the tremendous difficult time that we're all facing, and then you add into it the protests that are going on and how that makes delivery difficult and having people get to work, this is unexpected dollars that operators are getting with great profit margins. So we're very proud of that. I'm excited to share more stories about that and some of the other things we've done for carry out this time. Last piece to touch on is we are currently working on our return to work for the office buildings and how we will address banquet or catering. Traditionally, we've always done buffet style service, and we are working right now on more of a lunchbox idea where every person would get their own individual packaging, as we feel that's the way people want to be eating due to what's happening in the world right now. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to the discussion.
Great, thank you, Geoff. And our last panelist, certainly not least, and he's on a delivery, I think, right now, actually, is Pankaj Patra, who's the Senior Vice President CIO of Brinker International. And why don't you give us sort of the overview from Brinker's perspective? Oh, we need the sound.
Okay.
There you go. It's a good thing you're not that, well, there's no politics involved, so never mind. So go ahead.
Sorry, guys. I'm in a restaurant right now working, so I was having some trouble connecting because of Wi-Fi. Glad to join the conversation. So my name is Pankaj Patra. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Brinker. We have two brands, Chili's and Maggiano's, primarily Chili's. We have close to 1,400 locations in the States. Primarily 80 to 85% of those locations are corporate owned. And then another 10 to 15% is franchisee. And we have 52 Maggiano's, which is a high-end Italian place, and all of them are corporate-owned restaurants. So again, like everybody mentioned, the world changed for us also in the March timeframe. We were making good progress with sales and the initiatives which we had to drive sales and traffic into our restaurant. But come March, the whole situation changed. So I'll start with what we did to work through that, and also touch upon a little bit of our investment prior to that, which will set us up, I wouldn't say in a successful position, but in a much better spot than we would be if we wouldn't have made that investment. And then going a little bit further into, like, as we looked at the new norm, which people are right now tired of saying that, but whatever the new normal is, and how do we start looking forward from there. So the first thing, again, as we started working in March, our biggest challenge was restaurants were closing down for dining, and parking lot was the new dining room is the mantra we started with. And we had systems which was working for us, from a table management system, from a KDS system, but it was not set up for the volume we were seeing in to go. So what we did is we started looking at the systems which we have and try to see how we can make them work harder. So giving you a couple of examples, if we use NoWait as our table management system or a waitlist system, and we used it especially for dining room. But as we went into the COVID situation, we took our parking lot and numbered them 1 through 40 in the parking spot. And instead of the guest coming in to pick up the food, we had a team member outside who would walk over to the guest in that parking spot and use the NoWait system, where they had to enter the guest information. They would enter the parking lot information, and that triggers a message back to another iPad which was inside for the team member who was fulfilling the order, for them to know that Rob is in parking spot 29 and he's here, for somebody to then bring the food outside. So the beauty of this whole thing was that we even the vendor never thought that the system can be used in that way, but because of the situation we were facing, we were able to do that quickly and make the whole operations easy, because otherwise it was like a real challenge for us to go back and forth in the restaurant. And we were doing somewhere between 12 to 17% of our total sales in to go, and during the March timeframe, it almost close to 3 to 3.5 times of that. And how do you run the operations and not and still have a good guest experience was what the key was for us. Similarly, we also started looking at contactless payment with our. So we have a tabletop system in our restaurant, and it was specially for dine-in guests to be able to engage with us through our loyalty program as well as pay on those devices. And we have been working on a way to use them in to-go and bar, because those are not table numbers, so there is a little bit of complexity on that. But we were able to pivot ourselves and get a contactless payment out to all our restaurants in probably a matter of weeks, so that our guests can pay without having to, again, the team member bringing that order in and all those things. So as again, there are lots and lots of things which we did. Another example was KDS screen. If you think about to-go staging area, compared to the dine-in staging area, it's probably 1 to 4 in terms of the space, but the number of orders had swapped. Our dine-in was like probably 25%, and the rest 75% was our to-go. And the way the kitchen is set up and all those things, there is no way we can do all the staging and packing and everything in that 25% which we used earlier. So we also made some reconfiguration of the QSR or kitchen display system to be able to make that work. Again, this is something which we worked with our partners, various partners closely, and we learned as we went through this process. They were open, we were trying new things, and that's something which worked for us. So that's on the operation side of it. From a guest expectations perspective, that was also changing for us. So we had delivery already rolled out to both our brands, but we introduced free delivery through our loyalty program, so that the guests can enjoy Chili's at home. And the amount of name growth or new team or new customers who were engaging with us increased because of that. So that's a huge way of first to be able to get those name growth as well as provide something which matters to them during that time, without adding a lot of complexity. Similarly, selling alcohol online, that was something where everybody wanted alcohol to go, and the complexity of that is you have to abide by the local mandate, county, state, or city, but do it in a way where we are able to package it properly, hand it off to somebody, and know that we are doing the right thing. Because it's not just about the sales, but it was about taking care of the guest and making sure that we are doing the right thing by them. So we did that overnight again, within because of the systems we had. So again, both from a guest and operation perspective, things were changing. And the beauty, I would say, like, which I'm proud of and my team is proud of, is that we added 0 systems during this whole time. Like, we didn't add any new system to enable any of these things. What we did is made the systems which we had invested in work harder. So we had an online system which we had just revamped, and we knew that we would be able to hold or sustain the load for Valentine's Day because we saw the amount of traffic we get, and that system helped us go probably 4 times of what our Valentine's traffic was without any blip. So that's a huge thing where we had to just make sure that those systems were working for us. Similarly, I think no wait, I talked a little bit about that. We didn't add that; that was already there. We made it work harder. We made some small changes to the kitchen display system. So overall, I think the investment in IT, which we have done over the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years, paid us off during this time period. We didn't know we were getting into this, but again, knowing that we were facing a situation like this, it helped us. The last thing I would touch, Rob, which again goes back to what we need to do to be able to stay viable, go through the situation. During this pandemic, we also added a virtual brand called It's Just Wings. It's a completely online virtual brand catered through DoorDash. We were testing that in 9 locations, I would say right around when things started getting worse from a COVID perspective, mid-March. And we continued our focus on developing that brand. And June 23rd, we rolled it out to all 1,050 locations, remaining locations overnight. So the complexity of the supply chain, the complexity of operations, the complexity of the tech systems, uh, um, all of that, we worked through all that to be able to get it to market in a way where it was less disruptive for our operations team, as well as gave us the benefit which we were looking. So thank you again for inviting me onto this. Sorry for all the trouble in terms of joining, and hope to be able to answer some questions.
Well, so let me tell you, trying to take notes during this was just, it was difficult. But the one thing that sort of jumped out at me was the number of terms that were just used that probably 6 months ago, they may have been out there, but we weren't focusing on them. Curbside, we know people were doing pickup, but it wasn't a big thing. Contactless, staging area, dark kitchens, virtual operations, grocery in our industry, and alcohol to go. And and I'm sure I missed a couple that were in there. But what comes to mind is that what this has done is created either new opportunities, or it sped things along that we might have wanted to do alcohol to go before, but now it was easier because people saw that it needed to be done. So I think you've given us a lot to talk about. So Geoff, I'd actually like to start with you because you have in Wowbow have always done a lot of leading edge types of things in technology, and it seems like you actually had to get the technology developed for what you wanted to do versus we just heard Pankaj talk about how he was able to use what he had before, and Chris took technologies that he was using in something else, went somewhere else. So in bringing up the dark kitchens, did you have to develop new technology to do this, or were you able to use things that you already had?
Yeah, and it's a good question. When we launched this, it's third-party delivery, right? So that technology has been around for a while. What we're doing right now is we're working with other operators, so they can do it on any platform they want. In fact, they don't even need to run through a POS, right? They're going to get the tablets brought in, and the sales are going to come through that tablet, and they're going to get their money from the third party. So they don't need to run it into their POS unless they want to for their own inventory tracking or sales generation, whatever it may be. We've already worked with integrators to third-party delivery for, it feels like 7 or 8 years now. We've been working with companies internally that bring in those third-party delivery sales, and it goes into our POS automatically. Maybe I'm mistaken when I say 7 to 8. Maybe it's more 4 to 5. If you think of really the timeline, it just feels like we've been doing this for a while. And so we recommend that kind of technology to our partners as they're coming on board. The only technology we've added internally is a CRM. We're working with Salesforce, which is really helping us track all of our pipeline and the process as we're getting people going. But the day-to-day operations that's going through this, most of our operators are savvy enough and they're already working with third party and they have the system already figured out. Otherwise, we are bringing new operators on board who've never done delivery before, but they see the need right now, and the simplicity that we've offered them is allowing them to operate.
Well, I think what you've pointed out is a couple things there. First of all, I wasn't going to guess whether you had developed new things or not, but you're saying you were using things that existed. And if we think about, there's nothing fortunate about what's going on right now, but the industry in the last 3 to 5 years really did move to cloud-based software, and delivery came out there. So at least the parts and pieces were in place. Chris, similarly to you, you were talking about really focusing on curbside as one of the first things that you had to do, and then moving a kiosk out. And again, it sounds like you were using your existing technology, but did you have to make investments in something new?
We did, and it wasn't crawl, walk, run. It was run as fast as you can. So we certainly we use some of our existing infrastructure to figure out, we have a rapid pickup model now, we call RPU, and we certainly had that in the cafe for pickup off the shelf, but now how do we adjust that for outside pickup, identifying vehicles, making sure that the guest knew that they were picking an option for curbside within our application, and then making sure that there were no other complications regarding expectations surrounding adjustments, payments, anything of that nature. So it was a little bit of an adjustment for us, and then we found out we were having issues with customers getting upset because they were sitting in their car, food wasn't coming out. So as I said before, we had to kind of create that I'm here button experience so that it says, hey, I'm at the cafe, I'm ready, and my food, can you bring it out to me now? So it was a little bit of a challenge. We did have to, and again, we did experience some pain. And I think that this is a great opportunity to kind of tell everyone right now that while we're in this period, it's a great opportunity to experiment. It's hard to do QA outside of an office building remotely. And I think that that's a challenge for all of our teams. I think that when you're away from the home base, and I think that we've had to do some things pretty quickly. We had some lumps, but we learned from it very fast, and we were able to make adjustments and successfully.
So if Geoff wasn't a technology guy in disguise, of a CEO, I would tell you that the other thing that it brought about not only is the opportunity to test and to develop, but also there were funds perhaps available that may not have normally been available in a year to put in new technology as well. And I think that is another outcome of this. You're speaking, so the wings. Did you have to do anything different, or you used exactly what you already had in place to launch a virtual brand overnight?
We didn't have to use anything new, Rob. I think from a kitchen perspective, we had to make few changes, but apart from that, as far as technology is concerned, it was exactly running on the same platform we had for our base Chili's brand. So we didn't add anything. So our investment on that was, from a technology perspective, was zero. There are some process changes for sure, which took some time, but apart from that, technology investment was zero.
Okay, so so that's a good thing, across the board, I think, from all of you that were there. One thing that we're not talking about, and I think, Chris, Panera has been out there since Panera 2.0, and that's probably what, 4 or 5 years now. That came out as a real initiative to change the way Panera did its systems, but also to connect with the customers. And short of some large coffee brands that were known for connecting with customers, I think Panera really early on got connected. So how did this change, and this is really to any of you, the way that you had to connect with your customer now? Some of you might not have even known all your customers, and now you know a lot more that are there. But how did it change, or did you have to change anything on how you communicate and do the connection with them? Geoff?
Yeah, well, look, I think there's two answers to this question. The third-party delivery platform, as operators, I think we all hate the commissions we pay, and we don't like that we don't own the customer, and so on and so forth. I actually think the third-party delivery platform saved the restaurant industry during this pandemic because it allowed everyone to still have business and to keep things going. The negative of that was we don't own the customer, right? We don't have the way to communicate with the customer. So that's been a problem. But to your point was, to go back to your question, we have taken every initiative we can to over communicate to the customer. We were sending out, I don't think it was weekly, it was probably more every 2 to 3 weeks, some kind of an email saying, we hope you're safe. Here's what we're doing. The CDC guidelines was changing every day, how you had to interact with the guest, how you had to clean your restaurant, what you had to do. I'm so proud of the restaurant industry because we are the most resilient industry in the world. Any time there's a crisis in the world, the restaurant industry will feel it, and the restaurant industry comes back from it better and stronger than any other industry. And also, we are the most regulated industry, right? So for them to come out and say, now you have to do this, this, and this every 10 minutes or 20 minutes, it's built into our DNA already. So we can do this, but the customer didn't know we were doing this before and doesn't know the length we go to. So we really made an effort to communicate. We started doing more promotions than we've ever done to try to draw people in or to offer them delivery promotions. Here's what we're doing to keep you safe. And it really became about how much we can over communicate. to whatever group that we were able to do. And we've pushed via the third parties and our websites and our online ordering, join our newsletter, let us communicate to you, please let us share information.
But I'm going to guess to that point that you may not have had known all your guests before, and you certainly know more guests now, because before it was going through the third parties who might have known who they were. Now you have direct connect.
But let's be very clear. I don't think any of us know our customers. It's our frontline people who know our guests, right? They are the ones, at the end of the day, you can have an email and you can try to communicate to them, but the frontline workers that are out there who actually recognize people and they come in and thank them, we were doing that. We were thanking every guest for coming in. We were writing handwritten notes on bags, thanking them and trying to put smiles on them. And let's not forget, those delivery drivers, those were customers. We were giving them water. We were trying to give them food. We were trying to take care of them because we wanted that generosity and that kindness to go onto that customer. So our front line was all about knowing the customer face to face. As far as your question about email and data and all that, yeah, we're trying to gain as much information we can to change our demographic and our marketing initiatives because we want to do better with them. It's just an uphill battle with the third party owning the customer.
So Chris, you guys have done a lot with data and working with customers. You've been doing delivery for a while. How has the data availability changed the way that you do business and how you communicate with your customers?
Well, first, I think the data's been eye-opening for us because we've had to look at what the impact has been, in our business. So Panera, a lot of our customers came in and used our cafe almost like their office. It was a very different, you could sit, you could order coffee, you could, have a meeting, and it wasn't, necessarily tailored for value for family. And so what we realized is that during the pandemic, everyone's home. How do we appeal to that group, and what are we going to learn from this? So we started doing family feasts. We started putting together value-added meals and trying to appeal to that group and learning what people wanted and how we can change our menu to add that value to get people to come back in. So not just, coffee subscription, which could potentially draw people in, or offering a value for one person, but doing it for groups of people, and then offering grocery, because why not? We have the products, it's in-house, and we have it in bulk. Let's offer it to people and maybe help them. So we have a large loyalty following, probably one of the largest in the industry, several million people, and it's interesting to see how they react. And we have so many different channels and preferences for our different guests and how they order. So trying to make sure we're on top of the preferences of ordering, and then making sure we're appealing to that different. We have people that love drive-through. We have people that love rapid pickup, curbside, drive-through pickup through the window. We have people that just order from third-party aggregators. So all of that, and appealing to it in a way that makes sense. We're using that data now to try to make sure that we attempt to hit all of our groups and make sure that everyone is appeased. But definitely the biggest learning has been how this work from home, people being at home more often and families together and eating at the table kind of thing. I think how we can appeal to that group more than anything.
Right. Hey, Pankaj, the Ifbta uses some of your restaurants, Maggiano's, actually for a lot of our meetings, and obviously they do a heavy catering business, and I don't want to forget that catering is part of this discussion today. So some of you have mentioned, what are you going to do with the office, and what are you going to do? But what did you do when you're doing a ton of sales in catering in your operations inside? How did you convert that? It just goes empty, and you just have to focus on everything else? And then how do you bring them back?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rob. I think so. We saw a sharp decline in catering and banquet, primarily at Maggiano's. But the good thing was, again, having a database which tells you, I would say, a lot about your guest. And we approach them with all the process procedures we are putting in place. From a social distancing perspective, cleaning, what we are doing from a kitchen perspective, and all those things. And I would say, again, we are not where we need to be from a catering perspective, but what has helped is that being transparent, showing them what we are doing, help get some of those back as a part of the process. And not just within the four walls of the restaurant, but we had where we were catering to events outside, which people didn't cancel even in this situation. And there were a lot of folks who said like, hey, it's not a good idea to do this, and we cannot like all the practices which needs to be in that city or that state, you won't be able to adhere to that. But again, I think it's being honest to what we stand for, helping our guests, and just following the mandate. I think we were able to get quite a bit of that catering business back for Maggiano's. The other thing I would say, going back to what Geoff and Chris mentioned, from a loyalty perspective, um, I would say pre-COVID, the way we communicated to our guests was a little bit different than post-COVID. I think Geoff mentioned about this, is that it was more about checking in like how they are doing, what we can do to help them, and also being transparent about what we are doing to take care of it, right? So for example, the whole curbside process, what are we doing for them to be in the car, not get into the restaurant, so that the team member can run the food, and what we are doing to take care of the cleanliness of the kitchen and all those things. That helped a lot of people see it and feel safe about it, right? Because the biggest thing is that they want to know that where they're picking up their food, the people are taking care of social distancing, cleanliness, and all those things. And then as we started alcohol, or as we started doing curbside in locations where we were not able to do curbside because of the distance or the way the whole parking lot is set up and all those things, we just communicated to those guests in that trade area or market to say like, hey, this is what we are offering and this is how we are going to do it. And as I said, like this helped us not only to retain the guests we had in our database, but also to bring new guests to our database as we go through this process.
Thank you.
I just want to, sorry, Rob, I just want to join in there. When you talk about the banquet and bringing the catering back, obviously we're not doing banquet parties inside the restaurant as Maggiano's doing. But one of the things we wanted to recognize was eventually at some point, people are going back to the office. So we were doing, you could buy a lunch for 10 that we would deliver to frontline workers, and you as a guest would get a credit for a lunch for 10 for your office when you return back to work. So it was like a buy one, get one banquet type thing. So we were able to, people could feel good. They could feed frontline workers. We would give them recognition with their company logo or whatever it may be, with a note actually from the guest and from us. And then they'd have a credit for when their office comes back to work. We could feed them and then try to grow back that catering business as the buildings come back to work. We saw some success with that.
Right. Hey, Chris, did you have anything in the catering side you wanted to add?
No, we've done a similar program at Panera. We did it for all of the local hospitals in proximity to Panera, as we've offered people to donate food delivery. So they can pick a hospital, we'll send it to the frontline workers and send a note if they want to try to encourage them to, thank you for all you're doing, kind of thing. So we certainly have done that. But with catering, we certainly are focused again, trying to get ahead of things with Panera at Work, again, trying to launch a new program that would, bring some of that catering business back eventually into the fold.
Okay. Well, listen, we have a great audience who has asked a lot of questions. So I'd like to flip to some of those questions. Geoff, the first one is actually for you about how did you formulate the packages that you give to restaurants? Do you have a food science department, R&D, and how did you pick up the third parties, that you had mentioned before?
I assume this is talking about our dark kitchen initiative that we're doing.
Yes.
So
yes.
we have 90% of our menu is made frozen, and we have national distribution. And we're 17 years old. So we took our top items, which is 3 rice bowls, 4 bao, and 2 pot stickers, and that's the box. We actually internally call it Wow Box, right? The idea is you get a box that shows up. And we're already in national distribution. So you come in, Rob, and you say, hey, I want to open up Rob's Burgers in Idaho selling Wow Bao. You call us, we have a resale agreement, it's 3 pages, we put it through, and once you sign up with us, internally now, we call all the 3 third parties for you. You will sign a contract with them, with each of them, but we have all the photos, the assets, the menu descriptions, the prices, we upload it to them. We have supply chain built in, we call our supply chain people, ask you what distributor you work, we get it to your distributor, because we work with Dot Foods, who's a distributor to Broadliners. We have an online training portal that you go on to. It's like 7 20-second videos. That's all you need to get it running. Edward Don stocks all of our packaging. If you're not with them, we have the contracts ready to go. And as far as equipment goes, it's frozen food that you thaw and steam. So if you have a steamer and a flat top, you're done. If you don't have that and you have a stovetop burner, we have a 60, that's $60 kettle that you can use, and then a skillet to make the pot stickers, and you need to buy a rice cooker. So it's $495 to us to get started, which we then give back to you in social media, a social media blitz that we do in your neighborhood at launch. And then all you need to do is spend under $300 in equipment if you don't own the equipment already, and then it's food and packaging. And with a 40% return on your sales, and our goal is for you to do 2,000 a week, you basically, with restaurants that are opening up with 3,000 out the gate, they're paying their entire initial investment in the first week.
Well, those are some pretty good numbers. I know other people are also focused on their numbers. I think for Chris and Pankaj, well, a couple things, but you know, both of your companies have been known for doing a lot of marketing and things at tableside and inside the restaurant, signage. You know, obviously in Panera, and tableside, I believe, Pankaj, you talked about what you were deploying at tableside. And, you know, with guests who are not coming through the restaurant anymore, they're doing third-party delivery online, a drive-through that's there. You know, how do you actually communicate now specials, gift cards, other marketing initiatives that you normally would have done in store? Either one, maybe Pankaj, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I'll take it first. I think, again, knowing the channel which is driving traffic and finding a way of digitizing, whether it is the table tents which we had or whether it is the content which was running on the tabletop devices, we basically digitized that whole thing to run on our online assets. The other thing I would give a call out, Rob, over here is to all the partners who we work with, whether it is DoorDash or whether it is Presto or whether it is with the partners who are supplying something. I think they also stepped in. We had a hashtag going on in this together where they also helped us market to the customers they had in terms of what we are doing. And then the marketing department, I think, again, from a social perspective, to be able to promote what we are doing helped us a lot in this whole process. The last thing I would say is that as we were going through the whole process of, so we had some kind of marketing material which was in our parking lot in some locations which we were testing. But the challenge was because of weather and all those things, we didn't roll it out to all the locations, but we tried that out. And we did see some incrementality on that, but it was not to a point where we felt like we have to roll it out to all the locations.
Right. Chris, you have the similar challenge.
Yep, absolutely. And certainly we focused on within our application, you know, modifying the way that we market to our customers, and then also with our loyalty members, certain messaging, but not overwhelming because we didn't want to just, you know, spam them with mail. But certainly there was a big pickup on online presence as far as social media is concerned and whatnot. And I'll tell you that our digital spend for next year is the complete focus, a lot more than what we had anticipated originally. So we've done a complete shift.
Unintended consequence?
It's a consequence of COVID and what's happened. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we still had plans to do more digital, but now we're focused, actually, we're considering removing hardware within the cafe, less registers, less kiosks, and focusing more on digital and order on your own device.
So this is a question for everybody. We know that when people started to take online orders, and before they really got into dark kitchens and actually saying, how can we do something outside of the restaurant? But a lot of people were doing line busting and things like that, and they were trying to speed things up, and they found that the kitchen only has so much space, is only configured a certain way. And then the concept of Geo Fencing came in to try to be able to figure out where people are, get the orders done at the right time, and especially when you're going to add on top of it health concerns, you want to do that. Are any of you doing any kind of Geo Fencing with how the orders come in and how they're picked up?
So we're doing some, when the customer arrives, on top of the I'm Here button, we're doing a geofence location as they approach the cafe. But I'll tell you that one of our problems has been our menu is so large and we're very customizable. So we've actually taken the approach where we're doing a pretty drastic menu reduction overall in the next year, because we are having, you're right, Rob, within the four walls of a cafe, there's only so much you can do when you're getting so many channels coming in and so much customization as we do at Panera. So.
Akash?
Yeah, and same thing for us. I think for curbside, we have both options. If you have Chili's app, you can as soon as you're within a certain radius, you can say that I'm here, and it'll show up in the KDS so that the team member knows that the guest is here. And if you don't have Chili's app and you order through web, we give a SMS option for them to text back that they are here. And I think that worked for us really well. The other thing so we have a system which we have built called Code Time Calculator, which is a homegrown solution. And what that does is that takes the kitchen capacity, that takes the number of orders which are in the line, that takes to go and dine in, that takes your labor model into account, how many cooks are there, how many to-go person or to-go team members are there, to then come back. Like if you're placing an order, it'll say like, okay, the order would be ready in 45 minutes. And we try to measure ourselves in terms of what we quoted to the guest versus what we actually delivered. And that went through the window during Mother's Day and Cinco. So I wouldn't take those 2 days into account. But we have been doing a pretty good job of being able to quote them the right time so that we can manage the flow of traffic.
Which helps to get more through in the shorter period of time. Geoff, on your side, you really have built a whole concept that is based upon partners. Partners in the kitchen, partners in delivery, to make it easy for the people who own those kitchens to be able to do the different things that are there. Before the whole pandemic started, every conference I went to, the big conversation is, should we let all these people do the delivery for us? They're taking too much money, and we're not going to get into a money discussion. But it would seem that you've built a business based on those partnerships that are out there. And it also seems, from what I believe I heard Pankaj talk about his partners, and I heard Chris talk about people developing, that the whole model may have changed. We may not be debating the value anymore of outside partners for delivery and consolidation. But you're there.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's debating the value of it. I think the continuing conversation is going to be the debate of how much we're paying these people, right? That's the problem. I don't think look, the only negative outside of the commissions, I think, is when you hear, I didn't know I was on that platform, right? There's different third parties who were just turning you on and you didn't know you were on it, right? That's deceptive. But the world has changed in a way it never has before. And, kudos to Chili's to launch, 1,000 or whatever it is of the wing concept overnight. And we should all be so lucky to be able to have that. But restaurants right now are looking on how they can do more business. And the answer, whether you want it or not, is outside your four walls. And if you want to, I don't think any of us have the dollars to put on our own payroll to do delivery. The safety of those employees, pre-COVID, just safety of having them out and about, whether they're driving or walking with money or whatever it may be. Now there's the safety of interacting, right? So the third party is an answer. And to make any business work, and we all know this, to make any business work, you have to embrace every part of it. And if you're going to be like, ugh, I'm so mad at the third parties, and take out that anger on the delivery driver or your account manager or the tablet, isn't going to make you successful in business. Identify where your pain point is and fix it.
Yeah, and as a CEO, I think that you have to look at the whole business piece that's there. I think what we're recognizing here, and I believe each one of our panelists have really talked about this, is that these types of technologies and the new service areas are here to stay. We did have somebody who asked whether they thought that curbside is going to continue, after this is done. But delivery is certainly here to stay, and of course, the more that people do it, probably the cost will start to come down. So the models may be there, but I think that each of our panelists have brought a very unique perspective, and unfortunately, we've run out of time. However, I will, as I promised at the beginning, your questions that were not answered, we are going to give to the panel, and they can go ahead and talk to you as well. So I do want to thank our panelists today. It was a very diverse group, and as I said at the very beginning, every time I sit on a webinar, I learn something new, and you really learn about different types of things. But I think in this particular panel today, we had people really working in many different areas of the industry. And but there is opportunity. I think that's something we all should get out of that. So I want to thank each of our panelists for joining us today and sharing your perspective. And with that, can we go to the next slide, please? So each of our panelists' email addresses are listed. They're happy to have you contact them if you have some further questions for them. We are in the Tech Thursday series. There are 2 more Tech Thursdays to come. Next Thursday, of course, and then the following Thursday after that from 3 to 4 p.m. And next week is going to be your virtual lifeline about online ordering specifically, which obviously cuts across a lot what we talked about today. And then the last one in the series will be why the customer connection is key. More information about them can be found at the ifbta.org and at foodandbeverageshows.com, as well as these webinars will be posted at the end of this session, as I mentioned before. And then the last slide, please. There's one more thing that I wanted to announce today. We had all hoped that we would meet in person as an industry in many different places, Chicago and Dallas being 2 of them for sure, with the different shows and things that are going on. But certainly the Western show and the Florida show, which were both scheduled in September and August, in California and in Florida, had to be postponed. But we're going to do something in their place, and they will be putting on a live at your table. And as part of that, the IFBTA will be working with them and Tech Bites to really focus on technology within 4 different segments: the independent segment, the food service on-site segment, the multi-unit segment, and the retail segment. And I should just add, the segments are not about technology. They're actually focused on those segments for the operators. We are providing the technology flavor to those segments. You'll get more information about the virtual event, which will happen on the August 24th and at 2 to 3 p.m. East Coast. And we hope you'll join us for that. With that, again, I want to thank our panelists today. I want to thank everybody for attending. I certainly want to thank our partners in this with Tech Bites and also with the 3 shows and Clarion events. And I wish you a good day, and hopefully we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob. Bye, guys.